The CEO lifted the bride's crimson veil. To his astonishment, the bride before him was not the affluent heiress he was supposed to wed. Not only was the heiress unattractive, but she was also selfish, arrogant, and ill-mannered. In contrast, the woman standing before him was refined and gentle. At the same moment, the woman also realized that the groom was not the dim-witted man she had intended to marry. It turned out that two couples were holding their nuptials simultaneously that day. The CEO, dashing and charismatic, had been compelled by his father to marry the unappealing heiress solely to secure an investment for the family enterprise. Meanwhile, the breathtaking woman with an exquisite figure had been sold off by her adoptive mother to a fool in exchange for a $200,000 dowry his family had offered. The woman was utterly reluctant to marry the fool. Similarly, the CEO was just as unwilling to accept the marriage orchestrated by his father. Perhaps destiny took pity on them for their unwillingness, and through an unexpected twist of fate, their situation resulted in a wedding mix-up. As both brides waited in the hotel lobby, their bridesmaids momentarily stepped away for different reasons. Noticing that the woman was dressed in an identical wedding gown, the heiress flew into a rage and began spewing insults. However, the woman refused to cower and immediately retaliated. Just as their argument escalated, both grooms arrived at the scene in a hurry. They pulled the veils back over the brides' faces, but each mistakenly sat in the wrong designated seat. As a consequence, when the fool came to collect his bride, he mistakenly took the unattractive heiress, who had originally been intended for the CEO. By the time the CEO arrived, only one bride remained. Without hesitation, he took her into his car. Inside the vehicle, the bride remained remarkably silent, arousing the CEO's suspicion that she was deliberately pretending. However, when he carried the bride out of the car upon arrival, he suddenly sensed that something was amiss. He distinctly recalled that the heiress had a plump figure, yet the bride in his arms felt unexpectedly light. To avoid disrupting the wedding, he chose not to dwell on it and hurriedly carried the bride into the elevator. Concerned that he might be exhausted, the bride offered to walk on her own. However, the bridesmaid reminded her that doing so would be inauspicious. The seemingly small gesture, however, only deepened the CEO's suspicion. He remembered the heiress as domineering and unreasonable. It was impossible for her to suddenly become so gentle and considerate. Then, he recalled that multiple weddings were being held at the hotel. A bold thought crossed his mind: had he taken the wrong bride? Yet, he reassured himself that, with the bridesmaid present, such a blunder should not have happened. What made the situation even more absurd was that both couples had purchased wedding apartments directly across from each other. Even their families had met before, yet, during the fire-jumping ritual, no one had realized that the brides had been switched.